Sports on your dial right now. SEC stories every play, every time with Rob Browne breaking it all down. Yeah. SEC Sidelines Sports on my mind. Rob Browne calling game time, highlight shine, executive mind. Brendan Martin keeping Rob in line. Like, subscribe, share it, tell everyone. Sideline Sports, y'all come back real soon. Same place, same time, same tune.
Man is fired up this morning for Mr. Finebaum, who's joining us today, Robert, and we shouldn't waste too much time. He is in our green room.
All right. I'm ready to get going, man. It is a great morning, February 20th, 2026. I'll be heading over to Calvary Episcopal Church in Memphis for the waffle shop for the Lenten lunches. I'm excited about that. Paul Finebaum, I'm going to tell you what, man, I'm so proud. He's a Memphian. We're proud of him. Back in Birmingham, you watch him every day. And I'm going to tell you what, he gets everybody in line. We talk about alignment. The SEC marching orders are, how do we take back over college football? How do we get this thing back to where, the SEC is celebrating national championships? Do us a favor. Take a picture with your phone of the QR codes. We're streaming live on 8 channels of Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Share it, like it, subscribe. That is how you do it. Executive producer Brendan Martin making it all happen. So, hey, watching us now, let's welcome aboard Paul Finebaum and get this thing started, because, Paul, you watching the show, I get to see it every day, or I'm out driving. I've got the Wes Neighbors app on my phone from Huntsville. We had Wes on last week. Wes holds the record. If you ever talk to him, he drank 30 beers at a rush party back in the day and was still standing. That's a tough man. That's a very tough man. But, Paul, how excited are you to be back in Birmingham, where it all began? Really, it began in Shreveport, but thanks for joining us.
Well, it really began in Memphis, where I was born. But, yeah, it's great. I came back last summer. I didn't really transition fully until the fall. Sometimes things are complicated when you work for a big company. But I'm really thrilled to be here. And it always felt odd to me for nearly 13 years to be sitting there talking about the Southeastern Conference in the suburbs of Charlotte, North Carolina, right down the street from the ACC headquarters. So I am now located literally, Greg Sankey could throw a football through his window into our studio. I'm that close.
I love it. I met back in June of 21 up at The Club in Birmingham on the Mountain. Audrey and my wife and I went down there for David Housel's book signing. That's where we met Bob Lockamy. That's one of my favorite people. He loves you. And it was sad, though, at that time. I remember he was picking you up at the airport when your mentor, Bill Lumpkin, passed away. Paul, I grew up, and so did Frank, and so did Brendan, with his dad, Buddy, of course, reading the great writers. I really wish you'd still write. I mean, I miss you know how to get people, you know what, agree or disagree. When we read, we're a better country.
Yeah, people interview me every once in a while, and they say, like, what do you think your greatest accomplishment was? And I really think it was as a writer. And I loved it. I thought I was probably best at it. And by the way, there's always time to return. The way my career is, and the way the SEC is going, affecting my career, if the Big Ten wins again, I'll be writing for anybody that will take me. I don't think I can bear to go through this again.
Well, Frank, jump in here with Paul Finebaum. I love your honesty about that, man.
Don't tell me, Paul, you're going to the Bloomington Times. Please don't tell me that.
Well, Frank, I made the statement last year. I was doing an interview with Netflix, and I said, if the Big Ten wins, I will leave the country. By the way, I'm still planning on it. I just was waiting for the weather to get a little bit better. But it is... And again, I want to make this very, very clear. One of my heroes and mentors as a writer was Buddy Martin, somebody you guys may have heard of here.
Yeah.
And if Buddy Martin had been a better sports editor up in New York or in Denver and hired me as opposed to continually rejecting my resumes, I probably would have become the next Woody Page or Skip Bayless, and forgotten this idiotic world of talk radio and TV, because I really wanted to be a big time writer, but I know he cringes every time I say this, but I cannot tell you how many times I sent my resume to Buddy, and I can't tell you how many times I did. He didn't even bother saying, we appreciate your interest. We will check with you. If he just rejected.
Yeah, he was tough. I've heard a lot of stories like that, Paul. And you were on with us several months ago, and you said something. I've heard a lot of nice things about my dad. We're very close. And you said one of the favorite things best compliments I've ever heard. You said, when I walked into a press box, everyone was sitting around, and Buddy Martin would be holding court, and he was a titan. You called him a titan. And I just said, wow, that is really, never heard anyone describe him quite like that. And I that's the best way to describe in our industry. And
Brendan, he commanded the stage at the biggest and the most important places, and that was one of my favorite things. And I know I'm going to sound like I'm preparing my farewell speech here, but I would go to the Masters, and there was Buddy and Edwin Pope from Miami and Furman Bisher and all these great writers, and that's what I wanted to be. I tried to dress like them, act like them. And I was just a young guy. They all get away, kid. Get me coffee, get me a pimento cheese sandwich. But that's all I ever wanted to be. I never wanted to go into this. In Memphis, I grew up on people like George Lapidus and other writers that unfortunately people barely remember. And one of the 10 years from now, somebody's going to ask a young student, "Hey, what'd you think of Paul Finebaum?" He goes, my grandfather followed him, but I've never, I don't know who he is. That's just the way it goes.
Well, Paul, the thing about it, I remember when you first started, Housel was letting me work in the press box, fall of '82. And you had the English Derby hat that you used to wear. Remember that? And you'd come from the Alabama-Penn State game in Birmingham. They'd lost, I think, 42-21.
Mm-hmm.
And you were mixing it up with all the writers. I couldn't take it. I did 5 weeks of that. You can't cheer, and that's tough to be in the press box. But one thing, and Doug Dean from Birmingham's in here with us now. One other question: when you look at there were days when writers were prohibited. I know in Memphis, I don't think they let George Lapidus, Ron Higgins, Mike Fleming, any of those guys be on radio and then started doing it. That's what's made you. Your longevity, your writing career was your foundation.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Mike Fleming. He was also somebody that I met when I was in college and remained really a close friend until his death.
Yeah.
But you have to remember though, there was a paper outside your door when you woke up, and then you waited at 3 o'clock in the afternoon for the Memphis Press Scimitar to land, so you could find out what happened. Yeah, you were literally looking at the scores. I remember getting that in the summertime to find out who was leading the British Open. And it really mattered. And I know it doesn't anymore because I left the newspaper business too. So let me be clear about that. But the people in journalism back then, Titans was a good word because they had credibility. They had integrity. And today it's just all different. Everything changes over time. I realize that. I used to sit around with my colleagues in my 20s, making fun of the guys who were 40 or 50 or 60 and say, all they ever do is talk about the good old days. But you know what? They really actually were good old days.
But those elder statesmen like Buddy, that's the cool thing about having these writers and their ability to tell stories is stories hold up over time. And it's around that communal, fireside, if you will, that they tell those stories. Buddy, Paul, I wanted to ask you, talking about getting ready for this season, we've already addressed the 800-pound gorilla in the room, the fact that the Big Ten has won 3 natties. I'm sitting here in my Washington Nationals attire. I'm getting ready to call spring training here. And every spring, whether it's baseball or football for college football, hope springs eternal in the springtime. What do you see as we all go into spring ball in the SEC? Where do you see the work that needs to be put in to change this narrative, to get back to winning the national championship for our teams that really do have a chance of winning it?
Well, I think it's pretty simple. And I know a lot of people, the easy answer for the last 3 years, people bring up Nick Saban. I have a different name. I'm blaming it on one person, Kirby Smart. Because Kirby Smart should have won the national championship in 23. He had the best team in the country. He came down to one play against Alabama, and they didn't convert, or they fumbled a couple of series earlier, which put them in a hole. And had Georgia won that game, they would have won the national championship. They would have won three-peat, and this nonsensical conversation would have ended. And really, the next 2 years, his teams were playing really well, and they the game against Notre Dame still haunts Georgia because of all the situations that Gunnar Stockton really wasn't prepared for. There was about 20 seconds in that at the end of the second half and the beginning of the end of the first half and the beginning of the second half that blew the game for them. And this year they should have not lost to Ole Miss, but they did. So I think that's really part of the problem. Back to your question about this coming season, I think Georgia and Texas are the same two teams. They are the best teams on paper. Nobody looks better than Texas with the Cam Coleman, the Hollywood Smathers addition. I mean, those are powerful. And Arch Manning in August of 26 will not be the same Arch Manning that went to Columbus last year.
Yeah. Doug?
Paul, guys, good morning. Paul, it's great to have you on the show. And it won't surprise Paul Finebaum that a guy in Birmingham who's a little longer in the tooth than I wish remembers the Vickers days of the Finebaum show, the great production by some of the chances y'all would take as with Pat Smith as producer. And just a couple of your reflections of either something wild in those days, and I'm talking decades ago, or something interesting. And if you could pass on the Harvey Updike episode, which is so well documented. A couple of vignettes.
Yeah, no, there was one that I'll never forget. We had a guy who would call in every day. And I'll be careful how I put this because I think some of these people are still alive. And he would start off talking about whatever, it didn't matter, 4 minutes. And then he would immediately shift into gear and go, hey, do you know that so-and-so is still blanking so-and-so? Oh. And you can put an expletive in there that's in every locker room and every coffee shop in America, but you don't say it on the radio. And it was two TV personalities. It was a female and a male that happened to work at the same station. And we just had the most fun because he did it and we'd hit the dump button. We'd all laughed. If you were on hold, you would hear what he said. And they were prominent people, by the way. So one day, he'd done it 20 times, okay? One day I go, okay, hey, Jack, you're next from Irondale. Hey, Paul, blah, 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 blah. Hey, do you know and the dump button didn't work. And it went out over the airways. And we all looked at each other. That didn't just happen. But it did because, and that was the last time we tried anything. But I thought it was pretty daring to keep playing the same game over and over again. And then the city of Birmingham found out that these two anchors at a local TV station apparently were engaged. I have no idea what happened to either one of them, and I really don't care. But that's the kind of game. I mean, you talk about daring. That was pretty daring. Probably the most famous story was the day in 2003, I had a friend that worked at Sports Illustrated, and he gave me a 2-hour heads up on the famous Mike Price story. Mike Price, for those of you who don't remember, was at Washington State, came to Alabama to replace Dennis Franchione. He made it through the spring game and then was fired. And he was fired over this article that essentially accused him of having a relationship at a that's a dog, by the way. That's not. He went down to a pro-am in Pensacola. Yeah. Ended up getting taken back to his room at this place called Arides Angels by two. They weren't hookers, but they weren't exactly virginal goddesses either. And the article describes what happened in the room. And I got the exclusive, and I'm reading it. And I mean, Vickers, the guy who was the news guy, is literally laughing. I'm going to close this door if you don't mind, guys.
I love dogs.
and
Who can forget it?
So I'm getting to the point where, and it finally goes where, you know, the two women are up in the room, and everything is going on, and finally he screams out, "It's rolling, baby!" And I couldn't. I had friends of mine, later friends who were on the Alabama football team, who said they were in trucks like driving down the highway, and they had to pull off because everybody on the highway could not control themselves. It was so funny. By the way, the guy got fired. It wasn't that funny. But those are moments you couldn't do that on the SEC network.
Yeah, and
you couldn't do that.
Paul, even on if I got this right, WAPI 1070 on your dial, that was your station as memory. If memory
gave
serves.
a whole new meaning to the word "roll tide." I know that.
Yeah, it was.
Tarnish that brand.
Now, there's a great subplot to it. It would take 2 hours to tell, but I'll do it the next time I'm on. Exactly why he ended up suing Sports Illustrated. He won the case for this reason, but I'll save it for the next time.
Paul, and then my last question, I'll pitch to the other guys. More current news, current opinion. I'd love your take, Paul, on have we seen, for all relevant purposes of winning championships and marketing and branding your program, finding a way with the architecture of NIL and the portal, is there actually a death of the so-called blue blood programs, or does that still have value in recruiting and building the program?
I still think they exist. I mean, you can say all you want about Alabama not being an upper echelon team, but it's still Alabama. You still take a recruit through that building, and their mouth is open. But it is a money game now, and it's I mean, look at Lane Kiffin, what he's been able to do in a couple of short months in Baton Rouge. But yeah, I mean, if you said give me Ohio State, Texas, Alabama versus Indiana, Iowa, and Texas Tech, I'm going to take the Blue Bloods because I think they have more staying power. I think the other schools are in the moment, but one thing about billionaires, and we've all met one or two in our lives, they're in business to make money and get a return on investment. If Cody Campbell doesn't get that return, he will move on to the next project.
Yeah, Paul, we all know that Alabama, Auburn, they have a lot of boosters there. Mountain Brook, Birmingham, is Vestavia. That is a powerful center of influence in college football. But again, how many times can you keep going to the people? I mean, Gary and L. Drummond and the Drummond Cole people, that family, half of them are Alabama, half of them are Auburn. And it's like that with a lot of them in the state. Since you've been back in Birmingham, what are you hearing more about? Rosters, depth charts, tradition, or money, money, money?
I'm hearing a lot about money, and I'm hearing a lot of fatigue about money. And in running it's a little bit different being here. You run into neighbors, you run into people who support these programs, and in particular Alabama, there's a burnout factor. And you always hear the Saban discount, but Nick Saban could pick up the phone and call one of these guys and say, hey, why don't you come down and play golf with me? And they knew what they were getting into. They knew it would be a $500,000 golf round, but they didn't care because it was worth it when they went to the country club the next week and say, I was playing golf with Saban. Now, I mean, this is going to sound really cold, but do you think, would anybody really care if Kalen DeBoer called them up on the phone and said, hey, I really would like to have lunch with you? I mean, he's a perfectly nice guy, and he's probably a top 10 coach, but he's boring. He has no personality, and he's not going to move the needle, where Kiffin will. And Kiffin, I asked somebody in the know the other day, I said, how exactly is Kiffin doing it down there? And it's a convoluted answer, and I'm not even sure I can explain it, but there'll be plenty of investigations probably later on exactly how Kiffin pulled this off from a very poor state. But he's doing it because he has buy-in. He has buy-in from the boosters. He has buy-in from the governor. And that really matters in a state like Louisiana, when one man, Jeff Landry, who railed against all this money about Brian Kelly, is now probably the most important booster alive for the LSU football program.
Frank?
Paul is a lifelong LSU Tiger fan. I can tell you there has never been excitement and anticipation like it's coming up right now. And I will also tell you, I go back to Coach Charlie Mack, who was a hardworking guy. He's a grinder. He was a lifer. I've never seen an LSU coach work harder in his first 2.5 months being on the job than I've seen with Lane Kiffin. The guy does work hard. Yes, he's into a lot of different things, but I'm telling you, lack of effort is not it. And if you give lack of effort for LSU and your heart's in it, which I think it is, you should have seen him at Mardi Gras last week. The guy's, he is assimilating into our culture.
Yeah.
He will have a pass, even though we're ready to win. He will have a pass because we're seeing the effort he's putting in, and it's real.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. And one thing about Lane Kiffin, he is smart. He's analytical. He knows how to push the levers. I mean, personality wise, he's pretty weird. I'll be honest with you. I mean, he's not somebody that you go. I mean, he's
awkward.
he is awkward. He's an introvert, but he understands football and he understands what makes it work. And he's very smart when it comes to manipulating the media. Yes, you heard me correctly.
Yeah.
Paul, if you had, as we've chided Duffy, if Nick Saban was arguably the Darth Vader, if you must have one in college football, especially the SEC, and he did so, he earned that not through being a mean-spirited guy, but by just kicking everybody's butt and winning a lot of games. Is it fair to say that Lane Kiffin, for now at least, assumes that Darth Vader persona?
No doubt, and he's the most talked about personality in college football, and I think it will even intensify. Right now, things are we're on the dark side of the moon with college football, but when spring comes and summer, there'll be books out about Lane Kiffin. There'll be countless articles. I doubt sincerely that anything new will come out about him because I don't think there's really all that much about him that we don't know. But he is fascinating, and living in that third rail of sports where it's one thing to talk about it on the SEC Network, but when you go to ESPN, the oxygen shrinks. Lane Kiffin is one of those 4 or 5 topics that will always get on ESPN.
Paul, when you look, you have a chance to be on a lot of different shows nationally. So again, you step outside the SEC. Everything that happens here, there's reverberations. I call it the tectonic plate theory. The Pac 8.5, whatever it is, the Big 12, the ACC. So Jim Phillips, commissioner of the ACC, are he and Sankey? Do they do anything together? And would it be healthy for college sports if the ACC just collapsed? Because they held on. Ellis Johnson made a great point on our show. 800 SAT score. They wouldn't let go of that. And Chapel Hill, basketball first over football.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sankey gets along with all these guys, but the bottom line is Sankey really doesn't need them. And he made this deal with the Big Ten a couple of years ago, primarily I think it was more about money than anything else. Money, and they basically just formed the biggest lobbying firm in college athletics, where they move together, they control, and they don't even get along. The ACC, I think, ultimately will go away in as we know it. The top 4 schools, and who are they? Miami, Florida State, certainly North Carolina, and then it's a debate about who would be the next most valuable one. But they are going at some point, probably 2030 in that range, when that contract starts unwinding, there'll be a free for all. And I had somebody call me the other day and say, "Well, man, don't you think the SEC and the Big Ten ought to have 30 schools?" No, I don't. They can barely hold on to what they have now. I think both would add maybe 2, but every time you add a school, you have to split that money up. It makes it more complicated from a scheduling standpoint. Georgia and Texas A&M have played each other one time in Georgia since the SEC expanded. I mean, that is not a good thing. So, but there is a real crisis right now at that level, and I think the commissioner is trying to work through it, but there aren't many options.
Did you like 9 games?
I do like 9 games, but it's funny. All the people that were in favor of 9 games now find a lot of fault. And I think as schools miss the playoffs next year because they have that extra road game, it'll be 5-4 for some, 4-5 for others. You'll hear even more screaming about it.
Paul, is John? Should we believe the hype? Or, I'm not going to say hype because I like him. As a person, for Florida, John Summerall. I wanted to take your take on it. Is he going to be able to coach in the SEC like he's been able to coach everywhere else?
I think John Summerall would have been better at Auburn. I think it was a little more of a natural fit for him because of his time in the state. But I think he will be successful there. Just to what degree? What is Florida? I mean, if you can't do this, but if you took away Spurrier's 12 years and Urban Meyer's 5, what exactly is the University of Florida? They had a good run with Charlie Pell in the 80s, which most of it got voided because of sanctions. And they really haven't been worth much ever since, other than those 2 tenures. And I think Florida has to be realistic about who they are. They're not Alabama. They're not Georgia.
Yeah,
Paul, I've branded humorously branded the 3rd Saturday in September. Florida comes to Jordan-Hare Stadium, the Regret Bowl. It's just one game. It will not tell the future of either program. And I think we may see that both programs hired a solid coach, but Golish versus I think Summerall was all but hired at Auburn. I don't know if your sources would validate that, Paul, but and that may have been missteps. But sometimes you make a mistake. If you're John Cohen, the mistake may end up working out to Auburn's benefit. I'm not saying Summerall's not a great coach, but it's all about fit.
Yeah. It is, and yeah, I think he was about a second away from getting that job until John Cohen decided to play games and they blew up in his face. But Golish is still a good coach, and I feel Auburn fans right now need to win. It's been 5 straight years of non-winning seasons. I mean, that's absurd. Yeah. So I think there is buy-in. I mean, I hear a lot more enthusiasm living in Birmingham right now toward Auburn than I do Alabama.
Well, a lot of upsides, certainly. You said something the other day on the show about the Iron Bowl rivalry. Someone was asking about Texas, Oklahoma, how big that one is. And I agree with you. Auburn's got to do their part, a rivalry. But you think about Steve Spurrier. He was 11-1 against Georgia, 11-1 against LSU. But this one is the most inexcusable because this is a tough battle. The worst coach in Auburn history followed by the worst coach in Auburn history.
Yeah, I mean, I could argue, put a couple of beers in me, that Brian Harsin was a better coach than Hugh Freeze. And I might not survive that argument, but it's worth discussing, considering the time that he was there. Hugh Freeze might be one of the biggest disasters I've ever seen, and everybody thought he would be good, but he lost something along the way. He may have. I said a few minutes ago, if you take away certain things from Florida, if you take away 2 wins from Hugh Freeze against Alabama, who is he?
Paul, what would be the reason you think both of those were the worst? Harsin and Freeze. What is the couple of items that you think created that worst situation for both?
Well, Harsin fell out of favor very quickly, and I've never seen a coach in a short tenure have more people working against him. Remember that there was almost a coup to overthrow him. Freeze had the thing that made Freeze more frustrating. He had buy-in. Everybody was aligned, and John Cohen was telling everybody who would listen, well, we inherited a mess. Look what we've done, but they did nothing with it. And that Kentucky game, when Auburn, I don't think could score a touchdown against the worst or the second worst team in the SEC, was one of the most frustrating evenings I've ever spent watching an Auburn football team.
Yeah, Doug.
Well, the thing that was Harsin was agreed. That was a Stephen Leaf bad hire begat Alan Green. No offense to Alan Green, nice guy. In over his support that without it being mean, and that begat a desperation Harsin hire. In the backdrop, why are we surprised at Auburn? And I'm an Auburn man, Paul, but I try to be fair. But there were at least 2 or 3 parallel searches going on. One trying to elevate Kevin Steele. We might have been better off, even though he had nothing to admire with his head coaching record, which I think was 0 as a head coach at Southern Miss. So,
Baylor,
but Harsin was a no-brainer. It just was not working, despite the fact that he took Alabama, a very good Alabama team, to overtime. But Freeze, out of the gate, he's dominating the state of Alabama in recruiting, and you can't help but think, rosy optimists that we fans tend to be, we're getting somewhere here. This is going to really look good. It turns out he never, to your point, Paul, he never was an elite coach. We had confirmation bias going on far and wide in Lee County, Alabama. And, I think that the positive side, I'm not going to let myself be a rosy optimist, even with Golish, but there are a few signs that are encouraging. One of which is he does not play golf, Paul. He's a admitted workaholic. That reminds me of someone in Tuscaloosa a few years ago. And he has a singular focus about process and detail. So hope springs eternal on the plains.
Just pray he doesn't put a wine cellar in anywhere near his house. And by the way, Paul, that speaks to my train wreck of Brian Kelly. When the Harsin and the Freeze disasters were going on, I think we actually had a worse one for the expectations of what the winningest coach in college football could have done. Where did you see that thing going off the track? Because that was that Texas A&M game. I was in Tiger Stadium for that. You could almost hear the guttural buzz that was going on. No wonder we got a buyout before the second half kicked off.
No, I think you're right, Frank. It's inescapable how bad that turned out to be. But that was one of those simply it just never fit. It never felt right, and he never did one thing to make it right.
Paul, one of the things I love about you is your honesty. And people ask you, and I've seen you speak it a lot. You're great at it. I like what you said about Freeze, confirmation bias, the 2 wins over Alabama. And sometimes you're beating a program, but you're not beating everybody else. Let's switch to your alma mater, Tennessee. I'm married to Evolve for life. I got a ton of Tennessee friends. And Lou Katzerman, one of your friends in the Touchdown Club, you went to White Station with, the Tennessee fans are starved to win big. Your thoughts on the current alignment that they've got there? Okay, yeah, we're just a couple of more minutes, and I saw that. And just where Tennessee you think is going with Dondi Plowman. She seems like she likes football. And your thoughts on Josh Heupel?
I think Heupel is at a really critical moment. You can't take a lot away from him because of the Nico debacle. Yeah. He did win at Florida. He won a couple of other key games, but I just hated the way that season ended. Now if they get Aguilar back, and I think they will, they'll be okay. But that program has to show improvement. Getting to the playoffs did them almost no good because of the loss to Ohio State. But they do have alignment at Tennessee, and that was critical. Not to get into politics, but I was watching Derek Dewey have an ad the other day where he was talking about your film is your resume. He's running for the Senate in Georgia. And I'm thinking, that guy's the worst coach I've ever seen at Tennessee. And I can't believe he's leaning on that. And the reason why he was so bad is that there was no alignment. Tennessee is in the best shape of AD, Chancellor, and head coach right now. But Heupel cannot waste another year, though. He has to get above that. He has to get on that playoff line.
Yeah.
Paul, sorry.
Well, I know you got to go. I want to tell you how much it means to us for you sharing time with us. And one of these days we're going to do a live show. Maybe you can do your show from Pete and Sam's. We got to get you in there.
I was in Memphis 3 years ago for the Touchdown Club, and everybody took Lou and Mason and everybody. They took me all to the Pete and Sam's. The first time I'd been there in 40 years. You talk about. There aren't many places you haven't that are still around that you haven't been in 40 years. But it was memorable. We will do it. I promise you, we'll just do the show from there in the back room, and we will have the time of our lives. Guys, thank you.
Paul,
we'll do this again soon.
Hey, buddy. Hello, Paul.
Paul, quickly, Paul, your most underrated trait is composure. Who could sit for 4 hours and get screamed at by callers and keep their center so intact? I got a compliment.
I do too.
I told my wife the other day, I said, I'm not sure I can do this much longer, but
no, don't say it.
It is. I do love it though, and it does. And this has nothing to do with me. The show has become an institution because it's been on for so long, but it does mean something to a lot of people. And that would, as I think about the future, that's the hardest part of ever walking away. And I know everybody is replaceable, but it is the thing that I'm most proud of is that family that we have.
Yeah, it is special, man. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. See you soon.
See you guys.
Be well,
Thank you
Paul.
very much.
Thanks, Paul.
Guys, I tell you what, man, he's right about it. I mean, every day, and it is like therapy to get on there and listen to the different fans of different schools. But it's about way more than football. We know that. And great questions by everybody. And I will say another one. The great writers, they are typically your best guests because they think about what they're saying because they've written it. You know, whether it's Buddy or Paul or Tony Barnhart, Ron Higgins. Ron Higgins could do. I mean, he's a little bit of Letterman in him. You know, that's what I love about him.
No doubt, no
And-
doubt. And
there-
what he
there was
saw growing up as a young man and a
Yeah.
kid. I mean,
Yeah.
just on that segment alone. What I was going to bring up to Paul was the Tennessee thing. Was what if, and it was really razor sharp. What if Tennessee hosts that playoff game? Because there was a lot of consternation of how Ohio State got to host that 8-9? Whatever it was 7, whatever it is, the numbers.
Yeah.
That to me could have been huge. If Tennessee hosts that game, I think you have a much different outcome. And if that happens, where does that spin it to where you don't have them losing their quarterback and you do have Heupel in? I mean, it could have been amazing.
Am I clapping or is that a timeout?
Yeah, no good.
All right, so I got
I
a real quick, Doug. I'm going to ask this one to both of y'all. You mentioned about that Tennessee game. I think what was going on, this is just my opinion, in the locker room, the build up to that playoff game, I think the Nico thing had blown up and guys were going, wait a minute, he's getting this and that. And I think they went in there a deflated team to the shoe. And that was the number 3 or 4 team in the Big Ten getting to host Tennessee.
Yes.
Yeah. You put that game, look, when that first note comes out, that ominous, that scary, almost like Bill Monroe or Doc Watson's bluegrass voice, you know, high up on Rocky Top. And then that T forms. I was up there with my wife the game 3 years ago. I mean, she was in tears. I mean, that's her connection to her dad and her family. I mean, those people, that is special. And I think it would have been different had it been in Neyland. Doug, quickly. I sound like Mort Kondracki on that old TV show.
Well, what I was going to say, I think opinions will vary, putting it mildly, and with fierce emotion in these parts. When you mention the name Paul Finebaum, and and that's in a way that's a left-handed compliment to Paul, that he's in the business of entertainment, and if you write opinions that, well, I'm not sure what's really going to happen, no one's going to read it. You have to take a position. He's not afraid to do that. But I miss Paul's writing back in the Birmingham Post-Herald days. But when, it was almost parallel to how the journey I went through, and Brenda will love this, with Coach Spurrier. I sort of disliked and didn't understand Spurrier before I became a dadgum Steve Spurrier fan. I mean, big fan. I really like the guy a lot more than Meyer. Nothing against Urban Meyer. All he did was win a lot at Florida. But Paul, I felt the same way about Paul. At first, he was out of step with the genteel, you know what I'm talking about, guys, style of writing, classy, respect. He was a flamethrower and built a brand doing it. But he was overall, if you measure over 5 or 6 years with Auburn, Alabama in particular, which is how he made his money at the Post-Herald, he would spread the hate around. Yeah. Like if you were down, he would kick you, but usually he wasn't just a shill for the Crimson Tide for the most
and
part.
he has relationships with so many people. I mean, he and Coach Dye took him under his wing and showed him a lot of things behind the scene, and they had a special relationship. And as night, Paul just texted me and said he had a blast and looked forward to coming on again. And that's a compliment to all y'all, and especially Brendan and him talking about Buddy. But Buddy, I watched Buddy for years on the Finebaum show. And I'm like, I got to get this guy on my show. And then I got him on, and here we are. It's just, everything's relationships. I'm going to throw something at y'all too. I see some comments from my friend David Baker on here. And Dave's a Memphis fan and a Tennessee and South Carolina and Mississippi State, wherever he's got kids in college. But he's right about this fatigue. We've got to be careful of, everywhere you go, the football team, the basketball team, the baseball team, it matters. It's personal. Okay, it's localized, and I'm with Dave. I don't want to get to the point. We better be very careful because look what's about to happen in Major League Baseball. Dudley Dawson said on this show, Inside Arkansas, Wednesday morning, we're on the verge of a lockout. We don't want to have this happen in college sports where schools just throw in the towel. Frank, who would have given up on Tulane a few years ago before Iron Man Willie Fritz came in? Doug, UAB is the largest employer in the city of Birmingham, and I believe the state of Alabama. We better be, and I'm talking D1, D2, D3. We've all traveled. Brendan has traveled all over the planet too. Wherever you go, this stuff matters, Frank. It's got to matter.
No doubt, no doubt. Now, I did see Brendan's note. We'll talk about SEC hoops. Now, I, as an LSU fan, would like to bypass SEC hoops and go right to SEC baseball.
I'm with
Whenever
you.
y'all ready to do that.
No, I really
just go ahead and coronate the Gators.
Alabama's sitting there waiting in the weeds. They're only a couple games behind you guys, right?
Yeah.
So this thing's far from over, boys. And look, I do think Florida's going to steamroll Ole Miss, and look, Alabama's going to beat us like a rented mule. But this thing ain't over with yet. But where do y'all see the depth this year? I think, in my opinion, the depth's down from certainly what it was last year, and maybe even the year before that.
It is, and I know this. Last year we had 14 out of 16 teams make it. This year, Joe Lunardi is talking maybe 10 or 11. He thinks you're going to have Florida playing for the national championship, and I don't think he said Arizona. But he's got Florida winning again. I won't be surprised at that. Doug Dean, you watch this conference. John Calipari's a lot more comfortable now in year 2 at Arkansas.
He's re-energized, isn't he?
And look, guys, that he did live next door to the bishop of the diocese here in West Tennessee over on Red Acres, and was a daily celebrant at Mass. I just think that's kind of important for him. But no, he is a fired up guy, and the Arkansas people, whatever John Calipari wants, John Calipari is going to get, Doug.
Yeah, and if we have some Utes, did you see my cousin Benny Duff?
Utes.
What is a
It's an
Ute?
Indian.
The underrated movie, by the way.
Is.
And I think Marissa Tomei won a supporting actress.
Lovely Marissa Tomei.
Like
you love that.
My biological clock is over here ticking.
She's making a comeback.
So, if we have Utes tuned in, I hope we do. You need that demographic. Yep. Rob Brendan pulls.
We do not have any. Just so you know, our 18 to 23 demo is dead on arrival.
Well,
we're going to work on that. But here's my point. Utes, if you tune in later when we drive you to this show in archives, it is difficult following a transformational leader. Nick Saban was maybe the archetypal transformational leader of our century. And of course, Alabama had won championships before Coach Saban, putting it mildly. But in the case of Auburn, my God, the joke was that there was an Indian burial ground under Auburn Arena before Bruce Pearl got there. I mean, everything went badly. And all Bruce did was transform that culture, that program. He worked his rear end off marketing it to students. How many programs can say 3 days before a basketball game, they have students camping out in tents in 30-degree weather to make sure they get a seat? And the sad thing is, after Auburn was in a tough spot, Bruce, I mean, you can blame Bruce if you want, but it's his son. He believed that Stephen, it's not over yet. Stephen is surely going to get another year or two, and it'll be his players for the most part. But, if Auburn, you're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't. If you let Stephen Pearl have the shot without any head coaching experience, maybe you get continuity and you get this Bruce Pearl still active and engaged with the program, which helps branding and maybe recruiting. But if you go the other direction and hire a proven head coach, then that probably also blows up the continuity you had. And so I think maybe this Auburn program was headed for a rocky time this year, almost no matter what. But for five game losing skid now, Auburn is is squarely on the bubble, and that's tough to see given what Bruce making two Final Fours.
Well, and the problem,
But Doug, I think you're right. He had to go that route. They had to have Steven. They had to try and see if they could keep that thing rolling. But look, we all know in entertainment, what's the two things you don't want to follow? Kids and animals when you're an entertainment act.
Yeah.
What do you don't want to follow when you're a coach? A great coach.
Yeah.
And Bruce is just like Saban, Bruce is a great coach, even if it's your own kid. You got to give this guy time. I think he obviously has sat at his dad's feet. I think it's just you're going to have hiccups when you have this transition. You just are. And Auburn's got a great program. I think you have to try.
I just watched so much of this happen after Meyer leaves Florida. It's just like, how long do you hang on? Dan Mullen, how long do you hang on? You go through these guys. It is emotional as a fan. I swear to God, when you go over a decade, you think this was just Gaines Vegas around here. Like, like what the hell? Like, how you think we can't lose? We can't lose. And then you're like, how in the hell did this happen? It is really, and I know we've had a lot of change transfers for NIL, I'm just saying, like, I get it, what you're saying, Frank.
It's difficult. I mean, when you are, guys, Matt Dean and John Hartwell were on yesterday with us. Matt said, it's not that easy to move 18 inches to the left to become the head coach. And I think Doug and I talked about it. You'd like to have seen Stephen go out, get 4 or 5 years experience. Flip it over to Todd Golden. I talked to Franz Beard, a basketballologist, along with Kevin Skarbinski, the two writers that write with as much urgency about college basketball as they do college football. That's hard to find. But you go back and you look at that. Todd Golden was 16 and 17 his first year at Florida. It takes time to learn how to be a head coach. And Todd had been the coach at University of San Francisco, the Dons, before he came down here. Guys,
Rob, but look, that's Mike White at Georgia, and the difference in him and Todd Golden, who was at Georgia's head coach, who came from, from Florida. I think those are very good, example of what you were just trying to say is that, he's a great coach, but does he have that extra gear? No, he doesn't. He doesn't have that swagger in that sense, where you're what Doug was just saying, the Steve Spurrier in him. That is something special to be able to, what is it? The triple threat, you can act, sing, dance, whatever. Like, that to me is so important. I think it's a great point Doug made earlier about.
It is true.
And, some of these basketball, especially, I think your guest on maybe yesterday's show, Rob, helped me with his name.
Matt Dean.
Yeah, Matt. He's outstanding, especially in basketball.
Interim head coach, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. But he was talking about, which I hadn't put a lot of thought into, but it's very on point, that coaches are not all created equal, and some really blossom out to year 10 or 11 if they can stick around that long. And I really do. I think I don't want to be hard on Bruce. All he did was bring Auburn an historic performance and accomplishment in basketball over a long stretch. And Auburn was fortunate that he was under a show cause or just coming out of it, or Auburn wouldn't have had a shot at a coach the caliber of Bruce Pearl. So I think that I wish that Stephen himself, or with his father's urging, had gone to Murray State or pick your, up and coming mid-major type of program and just experience what it's like to be a head coach. And I think he might have had a better chance to hit the ground running. And Auburn's certainly not out of it. What's maddening to Auburn fans is, with all due respect to my friend Brendan, how does Auburn look that good in Gainesville in a quad one win, and then look that bad against Mississippi State on the road?
That
time of year, time when the game was played. I think, Doug. That's probably this. And look, Florida had, like any other team, you got to gel, right? I don't start paying attention until about January 1st, January 5th. So.
Well, the real thing, if you go back a year ago when Florida went on the road and beat number 1 Auburn in Auburn, February the 8th, they changed and never looked back. This year they went on the road February 7th and won at Texas A&M 86-67 in a tough physical game. And Doug, you and Brendan and Frank all know this, the psychology of sports. I think I read where Steve Spurrier would have a sports psychologist he would talk to about how do I constantly keep getting better. He is so driven. I think he's almost 80 years old, but look at his restaurant. Maury Gaston and some friends of ours went down to that restaurant on the way to Orlando last year, back in the fall, actually.
What?
Yeah, and they went to
Spurrier?
Spurrier's Gridiron Grill.
Not in Orlando. It's in Gainesville.
No, it's in Gainesville. They were on the way to Orlando, so they spent the night in Gainesville just to go to that restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
And they said that the attention to detail in there, I mean, it's like the salt and pepper shakers, the bathrooms, everything. And there was actually a meeting of 19 Gator boosters upstairs. That was the night they put the buyout together. Goodbye, Billy.
Do you know what the upstairs is called? They put it upstairs, outdoor patio bar. It's beautiful.
The visor?
Visors.
Yeah,
oh, that's
visors,
cool.
yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, I mean, we need to go down there and do one of our Friday
Oh,
shows down there. That would be so badass. I think that would be fun.
Well, guys, I'm only 2 hours away, so whenever y'all wanted to come on, let's go. I'll run on up from Palm Beach.
Hey, Duff, Duff. There's a storm of brewing when LSU comes to Jordan Hare Stadium.
Yeah.
No, I think I'd certainly pick LSU in that game, but you got to come by the Lake House.
I'm fired up.
We're going to have
always a fun time, buddy. Thank you for the invite.
I'm bringing everything that ever ran, flew, swam, or crawled. We're going to cook it. Hey, Brad Bellamy, general manager, LandersFordMemphis.com. By the way, I was at the CBHS Ducks Unlimited dinner last night out at the DU headquarters. Saw our friend Kenny Myers. He is, since 1984, been in the car business, loves working with you. He might be one of the most respected and loved alumni in CBHS history. And but anyway, tell us what's going on at Landers and then jump in this conversation. We've been talking college football, college basketball, and I know you got some great takes.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Glad to be on with you guys this morning. Yes, Kenny Myers knows everyone in town. He knows every secret in town and tells every secret in town. So the guy is in the know. Man, it's truck month, Rob. Really excited about it. 0% down, or 0 down, 0 payments for 90 days, 0% on all of our F-150s. So 25, 0 for 60, 26 is 0 for 36. So we got great deals, big discounts. Come out and check us out. Also, Rob, I don't know if you've driven by over the last couple of weeks, but there are 2 special flags that have been put out for the 250th anniversary of this great country. And we have one of them flying this morning. And it was really windy in Memphis the last couple of days, so we took it down. The number of phone calls that we have had of people asking, did people complain about the new flag? Is that why y'all took it down? No, people love it. In fact, one of our residents over at the farms, which is right next door, it's a retirement community. He told me that during their Valentine's Day dinner, the topic of the retirement community was the new flag at Landers Ford. So
love it.
Come out. We got it flying. Check us out. When it's really windy, guys, if it's not up, it's because we don't want it to rip. So, but yeah, man, we're really excited about the programs for Truck Month. Rebates on Ranger, rebates on Maverick, Super Duty, and then we got up to $9,000 off on 25 Explorers. We move the rest of those out. So come check us out. It's going to be a beautiful weekend. Also tonight, for anybody that didn't already have plans, Carnival Education Foundation, we're having our big gala event. It's called Denim and Diamonds.
Yep.
Over at Mallards Croft off by Halia.
Yeah.
We got the Neon Mooners, which is an 80s and 90s country cover band. They're going to play. Dusty Wally works at Bank, Tennessee, one of our board members. Unbelievable cook, wins barbecue competitions. He's doing a special Louisiana meal tonight. We got some gumbo. We got some fish, all in honor of Frank.
Thank you.
With it being Mardi Gras week, it being Friday, perfect time to have a little Cajun dinner. And then we're going to have a silent auction, a live auction. I'm going to be the auctioneer, so I will probably say something inappropriate because I got scolded last year for talking about how the straight from the barrel Blantons that we had on auction was hotter than a hoochie coochie on the Chattahoochee. So bringing a little Alan Jackson 80s 90s country into the mix.
Absolutely.
Hey, Brad, inquiring minds must know, what does Brad Bellamy drive? Like, you drive a bunch, you drive them all, don't you? As long as there's a Ford logo on it.
I mean, so my wife has a Bronco, and then I drive a Mustang Mach-E. So I felt like it was super important when I came on the retail side, when everybody was asking all these questions about EV and what was it like, what was the experience like, range, anxiety, charging, that the only way I could really speak to it well was to actually have one. So that's been my vehicle that I've had for the last 3.5 years. My lease is due in the summer, and so I haven't decided yet what I'm going to get into next because man, it's sure nice not to have to go to the gas station. I mean, I haven't had to pay for a tank of gas in 3.5 years in that vehicle, and it's a beautiful thing. As I tell our customers, my biggest issue is every time I go to the gas station when I remember to clean out my trash. And so with not going to the gas station, my little left door console has a tendency to fill up with crap. Then my wife says, "Can you please throw away your trash?" So I'm working on it. There's all those Instagram videos of all these different things about husbands and wives, and it's amazing how all of us live the same life. Yeah, all of us do. If it's not on the calendar, it doesn't actually exist or happen. So I don't know if you guys experience that, but that's a affliction.
I actually do not experience that. I would like you to know that I don't have that problem. So there you go.
The rest of us do. The rest of us do.
Honey, what? Oh,
I got the other day. The snow was so bad, my wife needed to borrow my truck to get to work because it's got the 4-wheel drive on the Ford F-150. And I went out there and I said, "Oh, well, hold on a second." I had 17 ducks in the back from the hunt the day before. And I was like, you don't want to get pulled over and try and explain that when to the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, the finest people in America. I love y'all. I can count too. Hey, look, guys, we're about out of time. Frank and Doug, great questions. And also Brendan, incredible producing. And Brad, just last, I'm going to tell you something, man. I love having y'all as a sponsor. And folks, get out there, ask for Brad Bellamy. Just get started with him. Make it easy on yourself and just go out today to Landers, the biggest flag on the planet. Is that the farms at Bailey Station?
It is.
Yeah, I sold a few bonds on that when Duncan Williams was involved in that. That was a great project.
Yeah.
Nice place.
Tremendous advocates of ours. We've talked about it before. We offer complimentary pickup and delivery. And so even a lot of non-Fords we pick up from over there and bring it to our quick lane and take care of their maintenance on their vehicles. So they became great friends of ours here. And it one of the cool stories for me is there's a 90-year-old man named Jack Thomas. He taught at Harding University or went to college, did not have him as a professor. One day he walked in, introduced himself. We started talking. And he's became a dear friend now and one of our biggest advocates. And just finding out the affiliation between, my alma mater and where he taught for 30 plus years. So it's a blessing to have them nearby. Great people. I love talking to them because the stories and the history, like one of the residents over there was a big attorney during the civil rights movement. Just hearing some of the stories about all that he went through and worked through during the 60s and 70s is absolutely incredible. So guys, always a pleasure to be on with you. I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. And if you don't have anything planned tonight, come on out. Be more than happy to host you guys.
I'd love to hear that 80s and 90s cover. But hey, Brad, my client, Frank Duffy, has name, image, and likeness value. If you could see your way clear to put him in an F-150, the king of
I do have the second inning open. I can put an endorser on. In fact, if I may, I need to practice one quick thing. What a beautiful day for baseball. Good afternoon and welcome to Cacti Park of the Palm Beaches, the spring training home of your Houston Astros.
I love it.
Today's game features the visiting St. Louis Cardinals and your Houston Astros. Hey, by the way, I'm not giving up my day gig, but I love doing PA announcing for baseball.
Can you send me some autographed merch or something like that? I mean, that's got to go for dollars and dollars in the auction.
We'll do it.
That voice.
We'll do it. Hey, man, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We're the blessed people, greatest country in the world. Thanks, everybody, for watching. See you Monday.
Same tone.